My name is Miriam Cohen, and I'm 34 years old. Before October 7th, I was just another elementary school teacher in Sderot, a small city near the Gaza border. Today, I share my story from an underground shelter, where the chalk dust of my former classroom blends in memory with the concrete dust that falls from the reinforced ceiling. Down here, the children's laughter echoes faintly, but it remains the sound that reminds me life still insists on existing. I was born in Sderot. My mother, Sarah, was a teacher in a rural school up north. I grew up watching her grade papers by candlelight, listening to her stories about students who discovered their love for reading in her makeshift classroom. Miriam, she always said, teaching is planting seeds of hope. I met my husband Avi at a book fair. Our first date was interrupted by a siren. We ran together to a shelter, and there, among frightened strangers, he made me laugh with jokes about burned circuits. We married 2 years later. David was born in 2015, Rebecca in 2013. Herzl School was my second home. 8 years teaching third grade, seeing new faces every September. My classroom had windows facing the courtyard, walls covered with student work, a reading corner with donated cushions and books. Every Friday afternoon we held story time. It was an ordinary Saturday in October. I was organizing lesson plans at the kitchen table when the first siren wailed. And stare it, when the alarm sounds, you have 15 seconds to find shelter. I rushed to wake the children. David was sleeping, clutching his blue stuffed rabbit. Rebecca was already sitting up in bed, eyes wide. "Is it a drill, Mommy?" she asked. "No, sweetheart." "Let's go downstairs, quickly." We ran down. The air below smelled of old dust and dampness. The metallic slam of doors closing mixed with screams and children's cries. In that instant, I realized nothing would ever be the same. The shelter beneath our apartment building became the permanent home of 12 families, 43 people total. The space is narrow and windowless, carrying the constant scent of iron, mold, and instant coffee. The concrete floor stays cold, even with improvised rugs. On the third day, the school where I had taught for 8 years was struck. I watched black smoke rise over a place that held so many of my best memories. The classroom where a little boy discovered the magic of reading. The art corner where a young girl once painted her family portrait. The library where we gathered for story hour. Everything disappeared in seconds. The shelter routine established itself quickly. 2 chemical toilets, rationed water, 2 liters per person per day. Food arrived in aid packages, canned beans, crackers, canned fruit. At night, the smell of kerosene from candles mixed with damp concrete. Whispered conversations carried news of missing relatives. Destroyed homes. As days passed, I noticed the children growing restless. Phone batteries drained, video games stopped working, picture books tore from overuse. Small quarrels flared over bits of space or makeshift toys. Eyes that should have reflected the lightness of childhood now showed a mixture of boredom and fear. They needed something to hold on to. That was when I decided to turn the shelter into a classroom. There were no books, no blackboard, no supplies. I had only the knowledge I carried and the conviction that learning is a human right, especially in darkness. I began with 5 children. I used concrete blocks to teach multiplication, trace the water cycle from the condensation dripping from the ceiling, encourage letters to be drawn in the dust that settled everywhere. With each discovery, a timid sparkle lit their eyes. David, my own son, was reluctant on the first day. "Why do we have to have class here?" "This isn't a real school. Every school is real if someone is learning," I replied. We started with a circle. Each child said their name and something they missed. Rebecca missed her pink bedroom. Eli, 6 years old, missed his cat. Maya, 8, missed the smell of bread from our first lesson was about numbers. I used crackers to teach addition and subtraction. The children ate the answers and, for the first time in days, laughed genuinely. Word spread quickly. Soon I was teaching 18 students ranging from 4 to 12 years old. The cramped space transformed into an improvised classroom. Broken pieces of mirror became geometry tools. Empty food cans served as drums. Invented stories became imaginary passports to the world above. We built a routine: morning circle, math with bottle caps, shared reading, songs that muffled distant explosions. I created shelter geography about ventilation and structural safety. Family history, where each child told about grandparents and traditions. Survival science about purifying water and conserving energy. Emergency art with whatever materials were available taught me. Blackboard was a concrete wall where I wrote with chalk found in the rubble. My books were stories I invented on the spot. Our laboratory was observing condensation, how sound traveled through walls. A popular activity was the shelter journal. Maya wrote about dreams. David drew imaginary maps. Rebecca invented recipes with our ingredients. Each child contributed news, drawings, or stories. There were moments I almost gave up. On the 10th day, during a lesson about fractions using cookies, a nearby explosion made all the children throw themselves to the ground screaming. It took 15 minutes to calm them down. Rebecca wouldn't stop crying. Maybe we should stop the classes, Avi suggested. But the next morning, Maya appeared with a piece of paper where she had written, "To Teacher Miriam, when will we learn about the stars?" I learned to adapt. Frightened children did breathing exercises. Sad ones invented funny songs. Angry ones drew their feelings on the wall with colored chalk. Some days I taught while hungry. We shared our family's rations with students whose parents had nothing to contribute. My children sometimes ate less so their classmates could have strength to learn. These small, invisible acts were seeds of humanity pushing through concrete. The absences cut deepest. Yuval stopped coming after his grandmother died in her sleep. His mother, shattered, could no longer face our improvised classroom. Each empty spot was a brutal reminder that war steals more than buildings. It takes entire stories. Away. Mrs. Rosen's death happened on a Sunday dawn. Yuval had special affection for her, who always helped him with numbers. After the funeral in the shelter, he stopped speaking for 3 days. It was Maya who brought him back. "Yuval, tell us about your grandmother." She knew cool stories, and he began. How she made bread on Saturdays, sang in Yiddish, kept candy in her apron pocket. "She's still here," I said. "In your memories, in the stories you tell." There were also moments of pure joy. David solving an equation he'd been trying for days. Rebecca writing her first poem in Hebrew. Eli drawing a detailed map of the shelter. Maya inventing a dance to our songs. The most special day was our graduation, celebrating a month of classes. We made certificates with paper from the rubble. Each child presented something they had learned. Maya recited her poem about flowers that grow without sunlight. David explained the shelter's ventilation system. Rebecca sang a song she composed about longing. The parents cried with pride. "We didn't know it was still possible to smile," said Sarah, Yuval's mother. "You gave us back hope. The world speaks of humanitarian aid, food, water, medicine. Few remember that children's minds need nourishment just as urgently. Education is as vital as bread because it keeps the flame of hope alive. Every word learned is a brick in tomorrow's reconstruction. Educating under these circumstances was an act of resistance. Every math lesson during bombardment said, 'You have a future.' Every story read affirmed. Imagination cannot be destroyed. Every song sung declared, 'Joy is still possible.' Maya wrote a poem about flowers that bloom without sunlight. When she read it aloud, the entire shelter fell into reverent silence. For a moment, we all believed in a future where birds sing and children run free. Here in darkness we grow, like flowers that never saw the sun. But inside us there's our own light that no one can extinguish. I imagine the day we emerge from this underground world. I want to take my students to a place with open windows, whiteboards, and colored pencils. See them play without fear, run on a playground, debate planets and poetry under a clear sky. I want them to understand that every lesson here is a promise that life will continue. I keep a notebook made of found papers where I write down the children's ideas for our future school. David wants a library with big windows. Rebecca suggests a garden to plant real seeds. Maya wants a stage to recite poems. Eli plans a laboratory to build his inventions. And you, teacher? Maya asked. I want a sign at the entrance saying, "Here grow flowers that learn to bloom in darkness. Until that day arrives, I continue." I turn the shelter into a classroom, darkness into discovery, fear into courage. Tonight, preparing tomorrow's lesson with a phone whose battery is nearly gone, I listen to the quiet breathing of children sleeping nearby. They trust me to give them a tomorrow better than today, that tomorrow we'll study astronomy. Without seeing stars, we'll draw constellations on the floor with chalk. We'll learn how ancient navigators guided themselves by celestial light. We'll discuss how, even when we can't see light, we know it's there. Do stars keep shining during the day? Rebecca asked today. Yes, my love. They're always there, even when we can't see them, like hope. Like hope. The children have begun to change in ways both heartbreaking and beautiful. Little Eli, who once cried every time he heard an explosion, now comforts younger children when the sounds come. Maya has started writing stories about brave princesses who saved their kingdoms from darkness. Rebecca draws pictures of our future school almost daily, adding new details each time: a playground with swings, a garden with roses, classrooms filled with laughter. David has become my unofficial teaching assistant, helping younger children with their letters and numbers. They are learning resilience in ways no child should have to. Yet their spirits remain unbroken. Yesterday, something remarkable happened. A group of teenagers from another shelter heard about our school and asked if they could visit. They had been struggling with depression and hopelessness, feeling like their futures had been stolen. When they saw our children eagerly participating in lessons, solving math problems with bottle caps, reciting poems they had written, something shifted in their eyes. One 16-year-old boy named Aaron asked if he could help teach. "I'm good at science," he said quietly. "Maybe I could show them some experiments." Now we have our first volunteer teacher, and Aaron has found purpose again. The parents have started their own learning circle too. While I teach the children in the morning, the adults gather in the evening to share skills and knowledge. Mrs. Goldberg teaches basic first aid. Mr. Hassan, who is an engineer, explains how buildings are constructed to withstand earthquakes. Sarah, Yuval's mother, has begun teaching the Yiddish songs her own grandmother taught her. These evening sessions have become sacred time, where adults remember they are more than just survivors, they are teachers, healers, builders, carriers of culture and wisdom. Last week, we received an unexpected gift. A volunteer brought us a small radio that picks up educational broadcasts from other countries. Now we listen to science lessons from the BBC, music from classical stations, news in different languages. The children practice their English by repeating phrases they hear. We've learned about penguins in Antarctica, volcanoes in Iceland, festivals in India. The radio has become our window to a world beyond these concrete walls, reminding us that learning happens everywhere, that curiosity connects all humanity. When Maya heard a story about children in Japan learning origami, she immediately started folding paper cranes with scraps of newspaper, teaching the other children this ancient art of turning something ordinary into something beautiful. The most challenging moments come when the children ask questions I cannot answer. Teacher Miriam, why did this happen to us? When will we go home? Are the bad people going to hurt us? I have learned to sit with these questions, to acknowledge that some things don't have easy answers, that uncertainty itself can be a teacher. We talk about how people throughout history have faced impossible situations and found ways to survive, to create beauty, to maintain hope. I tell them about Anne Frank, who wrote in her diary that despite everything, she still believed people were good at heart. I share stories of children who attended school in bomb shelters during World War II, who grew up to become scientists and artists and teachers. You are part of a long line of brave children, I tell them, and your courage today is writing the next chapter of that story. There are nights when I doubt myself, when the weight of responsibility feels crushing. Am I doing enough? Am I teaching them the right things? What if my optimism is placed? What if I'm filling their heads with false hope? But then morning comes, and I see David helping Eli with his alphabet, or Maya sharing her snack with a younger child, or Rebecca leading a song that gets everyone clapping and laughing. I see how they've learned to care for each other, how they've discovered that knowledge shared is knowledge multiplied, how they found that even in the darkest places, human connection can create light. These moments remind me that we are not just surviving down here, we are learning how to be human in the deepest, most essential way. I am Miriam Cohen, a teacher without a classroom, an educator without resources, a woman clinging to hope in the depths of despair. And tomorrow I will teach again. I'm not a hero. I'm simply a teacher doing what teachers do, lighting candles in dark places. Some days I'm strong like the concrete that protects us. Other days I'm fragile like the chalk I used to write. But every day I'm determined like roots that grow through cracks in asphalt dot. My mother used to say that teaching is planting, trees under whose shade we may never sit. Here I plant seeds in concrete soil, water them with tears and hope. Trust that someday these seeds will become leafy trees, because in the end, what else can we do but plant seeds of knowledge in our children's minds and believe that one day, above this wounded earth, those seeds will bloom? Every equation solved is a victory over chaos. Every story told is a bridge to the future. Every song sung is a hymn of resistance. And when my students grow up to become doctors, engineers, teachers, artists, when they become parents telling stories to their own children, they will carry not just the knowledge they learned, but living proof that education survives any storm.